Hello and welcome to today's edition of Velocity Kinetics. Got an interesting one today. And I'm recording this now while I'm thinking because I need a bit of a palate cleanser task before I go on to my next tasks at work. I've just bought another car. Quite an oddball in some ways, because when I went to look at one originally, it had just gone off sale 2 weeks earlier, so I couldn't get one. It's a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo. It's an automatic with paddle override. It's a saloon. It's Japanese. I'll let you work it out whilst the credits roll. So how did I land at a Honda Civic? Well, it was a bit back and forth, really. The quandary Sarah and I had is, do we sell the Swace, get something fairly new, and at the time there was a 24 plate blue Audi A4 Avant with 8,000 miles on the clock, probably nearer to 9,000 I think, but I know the first number began with 8. Within budget, that would have then become the main car, and then I would have still need to buy a shit box. Let's just call it what it is, because that's what it would have been in that budget. Now, I'd been looking around at various things, particularly Volvos, S40s, V50s, C30s, a couple of S60s, because they had the small engine in. I was looking for a small diesel car that had the low emissions, that meant they were either tax exempt or in that 30 or £50 tax bracket. The problem is a lot of them had histories of continuous MOT failures, and in general, as is the lottery when you're buying a shitbox, you could buy it and it could run 10 plus years faultlessly, or it'll go 10 yards and then go bang. Now, some people would say because you're looking at Volvo, of course it's going to be expensive if it goes bang, and yes, that is half the problem. But I think there were Peugeot units in those Volvos, so they would have been, or Ford units, but either way, cheap enough to repair, basically. A couple of them had been Category N write-offs. I'd looked at some even older S40s, like early 2000s S40s, and the insurance of them started to not actually work out very cheap. Case in point, I found a 2012 S40 D2R design in black. Gorgeous car, had about 80,000 miles on the clock, so probably on the low side for a car that age. Insurance, £40 a month, which isn't too bad when you're considering I'm insuring someone who's only had their license since September, and myself who's had my license for 9 years. But then I found an old S60, one of the original 2 litre turbo ones on a 54 plate. Within budget, had only 75,000 miles on it. So actually, even though it was about 8 years older, somewhere between 7 and 8 years older, it was in better condition by virtue of the fewer miles if it hadn't had a rollback. Now, I didn't do a car vertical or whatever check, but Auto Trader said it had no rollback on it. That 2 litre turbo SE Lux S60 was insurable for £28 a month. So, hang on, what? And it's the weird way the British insurance industry works. How is that less to insure when it's an older car with more power, with bits that are harder to get on fully, and it's would have been fully comp? I'd have been absolutely buggered on the tax though, because it was a £450 a year tax because of its emissions. So Sarah said, well, why don't we start looking at things like Ford Focuses? So we looked at Ford Focus. Within the budget, we're looking at ones that are either starting to have the bore score issue in the EcoBoosts, or we're looking at really high mileage diesels. We're looking at things with 90 plus thousand miles on the clock. We're also looking at what else did we look at? We looked at Kia Ceed, which was its equivalent, Honda Civic, which I'll get onto in just a minute, a couple of Vauxhalls, a couple of Subarus, Peugeot, the 308 and 208 were in there. We did look at Suzuki again, looking at old Balenos, because we know they can take the trip up and down to Newcastle. The Focuses we could find were oddly priced. And by that I mean they were either the newer shape, or not the newest shape, but newer shaped, but they were stupidly high mileage, like 120, 140,000 miles, which I know cars are a lot more reliable than they used to be, but it's still high mileage. It's still different. If it hasn't been dealer serviced, or at least serviced in a quality manner, shall we say, if it's had corners cut, then you're going to be paying the price for it. We did find a Honda Civic with a diesel engine, within budget, higher spec than the Fords we were looking at, and it was a newer. Granted, it was quite high mileage, but it was a hell of a lot newer. It was a 21 plate Civic that had about 88,000 miles on the clock. Now, I was a bit more comfortable in general with the Japanese cars anyway, because things like Hondas, Toyotas, they will still be running when the sun goes supernova, especially if they're treated right. So I thought, let's have a look. And it was diesel, fuel is Satan, but the Civics are quite big, and you very rarely hear anyone talk badly about a Civic. So we went to John Banks' dealership, which is the same place I get my Suzukis from. It's a split forecourt between Suzuki and Honda. Had a look around what they had, and then they had this 68 plate Civic Saloon, which is that shape I mentioned earlier in the intro that went off sale just as I was going to inquire about one. It was sat there, 68 plate, 33,000 miles on the clock. And it sort of went from there. We test drove it. It was top of the line. It's an EX model. Got the leather seats. It's got the panoramic roof, reversing camera, front and rear parking sensors, CVT with paddle override. Did I say seated heats? It's got sat-nav, wireless phone charging. It's a very, very nice car, and the boot's quite big for a saloon as well. So we agreed to buy it. It was just under £14,000, 13.5 if I remember rightly. That's basically how it went. So what I've done to make it work, my outgoings are actually slightly less than what they were. I refinanced a loan, taking out a very big loan that I'm not overly happy with having to do, but I haven't got a car on PCP. So the Swace is paid off. It is now mine. Finance clear. The Honda has technically been bought outright by virtue of the fact I've taken out the loan for it. I've used those loan funds for that purpose. Unfortunately, I've had it a week and a half at the point recording this video. Only need 2 weeks. Windscreen's chipped. Autoglass are coming this afternoon to have a go at repairing it. It's meant to be going up to Newcastle tomorrow to see how it does on a long drive. But as part of this review video, I won't spoil too much, but it drives fantastically. It's as mentioned, it's 3-cylinder, 1 litre, what Honda call power boost engine, putting out 93 kilowatts. Converting kilowatts to mechanical horsepower, that's 124 point something. I can't remember what it is, but we'll round it down to 124 mechanical horsepower, which means it's got more power than the Swace. But it's currently quite a thirsty beast. Is beast even the right term? It's quite thirsty. Now, I put this down to it being a 68 plate with 33,000 miles on the clock, i.e. it's probably done little jaunts from where the previous owner lived. I happened to see where on the V5, the dealer did not hide that properly. But if he's gone to the local town, which I think he'll have gone to, it's probably done 5 miles on a maximum journey, basically. It's pootled, it's idled. right engine for the job, as in small, doesn't need to be a big displacement or anything like that. But the miles per gallon are very low. When I first got it and found the setting to see what the miles per gallon was, it was doing 23. Now I've got it up to 31 at the moment. It's taken a lot of gentle driving and a bit of hoofing it to get the valves and things cleared out. But the numbers are rising, and we're hoping this trip to Newcastle will sort it out. But that's how I arrived at a Honda Civic. Not a bad car at all. On to the rest of the review. So, what about my buying experience of this car? Well, to be honest, it was all good, mostly, but not through the dealer's fault when it didn't go to plan. The issue I had was my bank. When I went to pay for this, they have a daily debit card payment limit of £10,000, and this car was 15, and I can't. It's not something you can temporarily lift, as much as many people think you can temporarily lift the limits. Maybe in some circles with private banking you can, where it's more individualistic, but for everyday banking, common banking, whatever words you wish to describe it as, that's not an option. So I had to pay in 2 goes, but that's basically the only problem I had. The dealer told me what the best number plate guards were to get, because I put my private plate on this. He even ran off a pair of plates for me as well. Whilst that's not expensive and pennies to the dealer, it's still pennies to the dealer. It's something he could have easily charged me for, and they didn't. The test drive experience of this car was very good. When we got to the dealership, this was the only one on the forecourt like it. There were plenty of Jazzes, plenty of CRVs, but no Civics apart from this one. He didn't do a very good job of hiding the name and address of the previous owner. That's probably the only other problem, but those of us who work in data and know about data protection, that's probably a bad point, so to speak. I've had to, as I've mentioned, I've done a very big loan to do the balloon payment on the Swace, and I've bought this, I'll say outright by virtue of the fact it's not on dealer finance, it's on a loan, so the loan does have an end date, so it can come off it, and I've already overpaid that loan. I mean, we're talking only 30 or 40 quid at most, but that has shaved off about 50-60 quid's worth of interest as over the duration of that loan. So it's give and take. John Banks was a convenient place to go, because for Honda I'd have had to either gone to Cambridge or Ipswich if I didn't use the local dealer, or Norwich direction. There might be one out in Attleborough still, which is sort of between Thetford and Norwich. Support local if I can, even car dealers if I can. Would I go back to that John Banks Honda again? Yes, I probably would. Could I? Probably not. Why could I not? Well, let me rephrase. Could I? Probably not if I want something new. Why not? Because the new Civics are about £38,000 starting off the top of my head. There was a ENY1 which was 43 starting. The CRVs are very expensive now. As much as Sarah would like a CRV, or would be okay with a CRV. So yeah, he didn't seem to know that the car needed an MOT. I had to sort of prompt them to get the MOT done, because it was due within a few weeks of me buying this. But it passed its MOT. No advisories, which was really good. It had a service very quickly afterwards as well. So this was serviced in January when the ENY1 video went out. And then a week later it went back in for some rear brakes. No, 2 weeks later it went back in for some rear brakes because they were on an amber warning. In the servicing side of that dealership as well, I know some people say, well, it's John Banks, you use John Banks Suzuki, you use John Banks Honda. Like, yeah, but whilst they might share the same building and the same forecourt, they're working to 2 slightly different corporate objectives. Both Japanese, both very similar ways of working, but ultimately different PCOs, OKRs, whatever the hip phrase is to be using. But overall, the buying experience of this car, fabulous. And the car's blue. I wanted a blue car. I wanted my Swace in Misha blue, whatever it's called. but that didn't happen. Never thought I'd own a Civic, is probably the best way to put it. Not as in, oh, I thought they were old people's cars or chavvy or anything. I just never thought I'd own one. Not sure why, especially when I did look at one of these a few years ago, or wanted to go look at one of these a few years ago. But actually, I've had more than one interaction with that dealer, because I went over looked to see if I could, when the HRV was still around, I went to see if you could get the options my dad needed on one of those, and that wasn't possible, but he pointed me in the direction of a few other things that would have it. So there we are. But like I say, John Banks Honda, fantastic, highly recommend. So here we are, just having a little wander around my car. Apologies for my unsteady hands, I just had to carry the camera as best as I can. I don't have a gimbal, and apologies for the car being filthy. There is a small dent on the rear bumper, don't know where it's come from, but not the end of the world. Yeah, the car's filthy because, well, it's winter, salt on the roads, muddy roads, and one of the main roads is closed, so we have to take the back road, so no point in washing it until that road reopens. It's a beautifully proportioned car. It's got a lovely silhouette profile to it. Classic saloon, long nose, nice rear deck. Classic saloon proportions, really. And as we look in the interior, it's nicely appointed in here. Got leather seats in this EX model. Nice switch gear, as I've mentioned or will be mentioning. Clear readouts. Telling me I've got the door open. Combination of buttons and touchscreen in this model. That black cable's for my dash cam. As we can see, we've got the CVT. Good space, nice cubby holes as we go around. Seats very comfortable, electric lumbar on there. Rear seats in this model again are heated, with it being the EX. Good room back there, very comfortable for rear seats, if I do say so myself. Into the boot, apologies for my bags. Well, as anyone who lives in the UK knows, you've got to have your bags. Demonstrating how big the boot area can be. That's actually a pull, not a push. There is a cutout where I did push that. So pull that lever forward, push the seat down. You actually get quite a decent sized load space, but there is that little step, as you can see, just behind the back seat. But it's a decent load space. Always going to be compromised with a saloon, obviously, because you haven't got vertical. But pretty good size, in my opinion. Boot lid comes down with a nice thunk. And just to prove that you can get in the back of this, I'm a little over 5'9", about 5'10". I'm wearing size 10.5 brown Chelsea boots. It's a little bit of a squeeze for my boots, but as you can see, even someone my size, being about 20 something stone, 5'10", fit in there quite nicely. There is a bit of room to the back of my seat. That seat I've got in behind is the driver's seat, obviously, and that is in my driving position. And then there's a little bit of squeeze getting out. Again, it's just the size of my feet, but actually once I'm in there, it's quite nice. I haven't got an awful lot of room for the back of my head though. It was 33,000 miles on the clock. It was a 2019 68 plate Honda Civic with the 3-cylinder 1-litre turbocharged engine, put out 124 horsepower. PS, I think it's actually measured in for this car. Engine pulls really nice. It's got a nice 3-cylinder thrum. 7 gears has been very hard to get used to, because I sometimes forget which gear I'm in at the high end. Front end responds amazingly when you chuck it into a corner. It's a far better driver than the Swace. It just is. Different class of vehicle though, because it's better placed in a hatchback, not a big hybrid estate. The thing that puzzles me about this Civic the most is not why it went off sale, because if it's a simple simple problem of economics. If they didn't sell enough, they're not going to keep it on sale. My gripe is, why didn't they just make it an Accord? It's a big saloon. I got loads of carpet in it earlier this week when I was going to the tip. It's a big, comfy saloon. It would make a lovely estate, because we know Honda Civics can make good estates, as previous generations have shown. But why didn't they make an Accord? They could have charged more money. Honda really dropped the ball on this one, in my opinion. Because if a Civic was 20,000, they could have stuck an Accord at 25,000, made the chassis a tiny bit longer, and there we are. Saloon and estate and a hatchback. They got the Trio plus the CRV, the HRV, and the ZRV, if the ZRV even existed at the point of this Civic being put into production. Seats are very comfortable. That issue of why didn't they make it an Accord aside. It's a very comfortable car. It drove all up to Newcastle and back in the space of 2 days, I think it was. And the only thing that went wrong was in the car park in Cramlington, at the Premier Inn, the wind blew, because right on the flight path of Newcastle Airport, the wind blew, the door slammed shut on my wrist, quite firmly. I gather from the staff at the A&E in Bury St Edmunds when I came back, because my wrist was absolutely killing me, I gather I got off quite lightly. If it had been the sway store, that probably would have been a break. So, every cloud and all that. For a car that's 2019, for a car that's 6-7 years old, you wouldn't think it. It's currently sporting a set of Bridgestones on the back, which I believe are the original factory tyres, and a set of Falcons on the front. Previously, I've not had good experience with Falcons, because on the Baleno I could run over a 50p piece and tell you whether it was heads or tails. This car is nice and soft, but probably all to do with the way it is set up. Electronic handbrake is something I'm still trying to work out. Not as in I don't like them, but in my Swace, when I put it in the park, handbrake comes on. In this, it doesn't. Seems a bit weird. It's probably just a button I need to hold in somewhere. The one thing I still sometimes at times can't get used to, I don't know if it's just a problem with that whole generation of Civic, or whether it's just a problem that affects the saloons. I'm going to go very Clarkson here in a minute. Is when you sat in it, it's a very low car. It's a given. It's a saloon. It's going to be low. But the way the bonnet and the front wheels are positioned, it sort of feels like if you're looking here and the wheel arches are like here. It's mental. I can't put my finger on it. I get used to it, but when I drive the Swace occasionally and then go back to that, I really do feel it. It's a weird piece of design. Probably aerodynamics driven, but it doesn't alter it being weird. For a saloon boot lead, it's very loose. I appreciate it's not electronic tailgate like that was on the A4 when I looked at it. The A4 was a different class of car altogether. But it's a saloon. It doesn't need an electronic boot lead, in my opinion. But seems a bit slack. Comes down with a bit of a thump. It's a lovely colour. The colour I would expect it in. The wheels, nice wheels. I haven't cleaned them yet. I haven't actually washed that car myself yet. Speakers are really good, although they're very heavily biased towards the back. One thing that I cannot find the setting for, and I've been round and round in circles for it, is where is the height adjuster for the front headlights. Driving along in the dark, in my driving position, the headlights, when they're not on main beam, are too low. Now I tend to drive with my main beam as high up as possible to light as much road ahead of me as possible, unless it's clear I'm being antisocial to not antisocial, it's clear I'm bothering the car in front in the space. I then dip them accordingly, lower them down, and then bring them back up when the space was there. I have no idea where the setting is in this. All my dad's Volvos, there's a little toggle switch there. The Swace, it's a sort of rolly switch there. The Swift was a 4-notch dial. Balenos, similar thing. Fords, similar location. The Renault Clio I learned to drive in, and the Peugeot 207 I learned to drive in. All in a similar location. But why does that have to be different? funny, and I might have mentioned in another part of this video, you know it's a Japanese car. In the apps it's got a calculator. Still makes me laugh. I've never needed a calculator in my car. Ever. Or if I've had to do maths, it's been maths. But there we are. Anyway, let's go for a drive. Oh, that wind is cold today. Here's something that'll make you laugh. This car is Japanese, given that's where Honda is from, obviously. But in the apps, in the touch screen, it's got a calculator. And it's not like it's something that's feeding off the back of a phone, it's just generally available. It's mental. I'm putting this into S mode for driving. So sport, manual, paddle, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to take this to the same place I took the Swace to give it a good comparison. It is a very, very low car, and on this speed bump I have nearly scraped the bottom of it multiple times. The car is geared very weirdly. As I said, it's a 7-speed, so sometimes it's really hard to remember what gear I'm in when I'm using sport. Now you can easily get around that by shoving it in D, and you can still use the paddlers to override it if you need to. So if you think it's in too high a gear, yeah, and you need a bit more power, then you can flick a paddle down, it'll change down, and so long as you're under about 5,000 RPM, it'll let you keep building the revs if it agrees. Or you can knock it up a gear if you think the revs are too high. And sometimes that is quite handy, because there are times in the Swace with that one CVT where it just doesn't make sense what gear it's in. It really doesn't. That is the speed limiter kicking in. And rather than hitting the brakes, I let that beep for a good reason. Now in the Swace, when you go over the limiter, you've actually got to be going quite hard to get it to go over the limiter. You've got to be fiddling around, not paying attention, gravity's got to be against you. But it's usually quite good at pulling itself back in, probably because it's got the hybrid system and a little bit more intelligence, 2-3 more years intelligence, to start holding it back. This car doesn't. So I set the limiter, and I do it quite a lot because, well, it's just handy to tell it what speed to hold itself to if it can. But this car just doesn't hold it back. This car lets it keep building from time to time. It does typically, though, from whatever you set it at. So if you set the speed limiter like I am at the moment on 40, typically it won't let you get to 40. It'll sit at about 39. Same on the motorway. If you're sitting it at 70, it'll set the limiter at 70. It'll typically cruise along at 69. Funny number, meal for two and a terrible view, or not, depending on what your taste may be. So that in this car, I also found that sitting at 71, 72 on the speed limiter is actually better for it, for making up its mind. It's got blind spot indication warnings on the wing mirrors, so get an orange glow when there's something sat in the blind spot, and get a beep when I try to move when it thinks there's something there. That's a handy thing. I had it on a Vitara Vitara courtesy car, and actually it's quite a nice feature. I do quite like it, and I think if we can afford it, whichever car goes next, we will have that as an option on the relevant car. Good Lord, that Defender's coming in close. As you'll have seen, I've sat my private plate on it. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the dealer ran off the plates for me as part of getting the car. The swap process with DVLA, pretty straightforward. I've had more difficult experiences with DVLA. And I've got the number plate satted number plate holders with a special key on my car key to release the plate. When I left the dealership, they forgot to took the approved by Honda plate off the front number plate. So I've got an approved by Honda piece of cardboard at home. That's 10 a penny to the dealer, but still. It's sort of an attention to detail element that you would have thought would have been gone, would have been done, picked up on, whatever. Horn is a bit squeaky, as in it's sort of maybe just a bit high pitch for the size of car. But like I said, it's a lovely car. Seats are very comfortable. The leather's nice. The back seat has got heated seats as well as in the front. The front has got 3 settings and it's on a button, so it will start off on the highest. So if you accidentally turn it on, you've got to press it 3 times to turn it off. Which I suppose, having had it on the Swace for longer, I think I prefer the rocker switch that the Swace has, but the Swace has only got low and high temperature, whereas I've obviously got low, medium and high, or rare, medium and well done, depending on how you like it. The switchgear in this car is quite nice. The buttons that it has feel quite nice. It's got a very good ventilation system on it. The Swace hasn't got a very good one on for what it is, unless it's just getting old. And maybe this one's just underused, because as I mentioned, this car had about 36,000. No, it didn't, 36. I'm looking at 36 now. About 34,000 on the clock when I bought it. Miles per gallon at the moment, as mentioned, it's not very good. But I do mostly town driving these days. It very rarely is on for more than 15 minutes, which at times makes me wonder why I bought another car. But Sarah and I were running into complications often enough where she wanted the car, but I may have also needed it to do things, because then when she took the car, for instance, she's at work today and it's a Saturday, I'm then without a car all day. I'm reliant on the bus if I need to get anywhere, which is inconvenient for doing the food shop. It's inconvenient for if I just want to go see my parents or my brother, or if I just want to do stuff like some gardening. How do I get rid of the garden rubbish? I can't. I've got to wait until the Swace is back. Not ideal. Do I regret buying this car? No. Sarah keeps saying she doesn't like to drive it, and that does annoy me, because I wouldn't have bought it if she didn't like driving it that much. I mean, she's driven it she took it on a circuit the other week, not as in a racing circuit. She went through a couple of villages and then on a couple of 60 miles an hour stretches just to get used to it. And it's okay. I think it's just because she's learned a lot in the Swace. The Swace was the first thing she went into, so therefore she just prefers the Swace. If I had one of these instead and bought a Swace, she would probably prefer this. It's just simple preference. Lovely day. Got a sunroof as well, which is fully operational. No leaks in it that I can see. The windscreen's had a chip in it already. Apparently it's been previously filled. When I had Autoglass come out, they did patch it a tiny bit more, filler. So the only thing is if that opens up again, they can't fill it again. It would be a whole new windscreen, which is not ideal. And I wasn't told. Well, I wasn't told by Honda / do they really need to know? I don't know. Now, one thing we're going to come on to with this car is sometimes, as you probably felt there, the throttle's a bit hesitant. Now, in eco mode, the throttle is extremely hesitant, and I'll try and demonstrate that after I've gotten to where I'm going. I just feel like I'm spitting everywhere at the moment. It's not good. When I put it in eco mode, it really does feel like the throttle is very, very hesitant. It's not a heavy throttle, it's a delayed throttle, is any way I can put it. Where in the Swace, if you put the Swace in eco mode, it has a heavy throttle, which I know some people say, well, what's the difference? It doesn't work as fast. It's like the pedal feels the same. So if you can hear a sliding noise, that's probably my tripod or my camera bag sliding around, because I filmed the outside bit for this, and I'm hoping I can actually use the footage. And if it makes it into this video, then the wind wasn't too bad. But the wind is horrible out today. Really cold. I've actually got an earache now from doing it. But anyway, that's not talking about the car. Like I said, switch gear's all nice. What I don't like is the climate control. It's got a button for climate, and then it goes onto a touch screen, and that's annoying, because it's like, well, why is the temperature on a dial, but I can't turn my air conditioning on and off through a button? Why have I got to press a button to then press a screen? You know, it's mental. So there we are, that's 70 in 7th gear. This car's sitting at just under 2,500 revs at the moment. We're sitting at, what, 2.4? Yeah, about 2.4. No, it's just dropped a bit to 2.3.5. But 2.3, 2.4, so it ticks quite low. You can put it into 7th. I've done it as low as about 37 miles an hour. It didn't like it very much, but it did it, and it sat there at that speed. And as you can see and hear at motorway speeds, it's nicely mannered. No, I shouldn't be sat in this lane, but there is a slip road the other side of this, and sometimes people come out of it. It's on a curve and it's uphill, and I don't like joining the A14 from that slip road very much. Oh, there's a slow moving van we're about to overtake anyway, so bye-bye, Mr. Transit. And then there we are, there's two cars coming out. 3 cars. Wow. So me staying here was proven right. But motorway speeds, very well mannered, very nice to drive. It just eats miles, and you wouldn't think it's a 1 litre engine underneath it at those speeds. You really wouldn't think it. You'd think it's 1.5, 1.6, maybe even a 2 litre for how well it sits there. But no, it devoured the journey up to Newcastle. It was very comfortable all that way. Seats were damn comfortable all that way. Driving around Newcastle itself, well, the little bits of Newcastle, Gosforth, so the outskirts of Newcastle, and then Cramlington. It was well mannered. It did what it needed to do. This car's got a built-in sat nav on it, so sometimes when I'm trying to use my Android Auto, the two seem to fight each other, but I do get a nice readout on where the speed is, telling me what direction and where the next bit I need to be pulling up for is. Speakers in this car, when I've got tunes on, they're nice, but they're a bit rear biased. I can't, as of yet, haven't found where to sort of bounce it around a bit. It's not horrible, but passengers in the back do get a little bit deafened when I've had passengers in the back, which has typically just been my brother. The other things I'm not so keen on, the Android, the touch screen. Sometimes it's too bright when you're driving at night. Now, it does have a brightness setting on there, and I can fiddle around with it, but it should, in my opinion, that's something that should be factory ready. I shouldn't need to make it more usable for myself. I should be able just to drive at night and not be blasted to death with well, not to death, but blinded, should I say, by the screen. And at night, when the headlights aren't on full beam, the headlights themselves are a little low. I haven't found where I can change the height of them, which is annoying, because on the Swace it's like a roll switch down here. Turbo, I think, is down here, because sometimes you can hear it kicking on and off, which is nice. Let's say for a 3-pot, it's actually got quite a nice. For a 3-pot, it's got quite a nice noise to it, which we'll get to in a minute. that said, though, a 3-pot, it's half a straight 6, and a lot of people say a straight 6 is the best engine because it's balanced. It's the most balanced. So in turn, anything, so if I've understood it correctly, everything in a multiple of 3 basically is the most balanced, because then each cylinder's on a different part of the combustion cycle. What I don't like at times is this car's got. It sounds like I'm talking about a lot of, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that. This car's got stop-start on it, and sometimes I don't have enough battery to make it work. And it's quite a quick responding stop-start when it's turned on, or when it's got enough battery to use it. But sometimes I'm crawling along in traffic at 1 mile an hour or so, and then the brakes will grab on and sit the car in stop-start turned off. I'm like, no, I'm trying to crawl forwards. So yeah, that would be better if it didn't do that. But again, how much of that is there's a fault with this car somewhere, but although it's not quite done it as much since I've had the new brakes put on at the back. The pedal, it's got a nice feel under the pedal. Nice feel. Sometimes though, I will admit, I've gotten too used, and it's my own problem, as in my muscle memory's kicked in. I've gotten too used to the Swace having the hybrid on it to do it. So when you lift off, it actually starts slowing down quite quickly with regenerative braking. Which, you know, like I said, I like it, but I found it hard to get used to not having that in this car. So sometimes I'm arriving at things a bit hotter than I'd like, because I haven't, even if I'm overriding the gears, I'm arriving at things a bit hotter than I'd like. So I have to use a bit more brake pedal than I would like. The engine braking, again, can be quite hard, especially if you're trying to drive it eco and put it in as high a gear as it's telling you to, because next to the gear number, when you're driving it in the manual mode, it has a green arrow next to it when it tells you, when it thinks you need to shift up. And there we are, that's 40 in 7th, and the car's ticking along at 1300 RPM. Now 1400, because we've just gone up a tiny bit of a hill and it's had to. But you see, now I'm in 7th, I'm too high a gear to do any engine braking properly, and then it's sort of coasting quite a lot. Let's turn that limiter off. Right, we're on the side road. Let's go. Oh, there we are. Can't see around the corner. Check the brakes, give it a dab down, give it a bit of respect. We've had some rain the last couple of days, so it's a bit puddles here and there. Some of the dips aren't there. Got to give it some respect. Into 6th and into 7th. Oh, you might see them. Looks like there's a Falcon over there. It's annoying. Sometimes I see some of the most amazing birds when I'm doing these videos, and I want to stop and watch. Right, here we go. So on the brakes, down, 6th, 5th, 4th. Into 3rd again, just to, there we go, give it a bit of pickup. Right, we've got a slow moving vehicle here. What's going on? Not my aunt, is it? No, it's not. My aunt lives just over there, so I just thought it was her for a moment, and she also drives a Ford Mondeo. There we go. Now here we go, down the hill, into 6th, into 7th. Now we've got the corner, 6th, 5th, 4th. Flick it in. Give it a bit more boot. There we go, 4th, 5th. Down 2 more. Around we go. Right, use a bit of engine braking because I know there's a slow-moving vehicle coming this way. I've seen it. There we are. Just gonna give it a bit more respect. Looks like he's on the phone. Now there's a, is it an X-Trail ahead of me? We'll see what we can do. Over the hill, that's actually a lot softer than it is in the No, it's not as a Focus. It's a Mondi Estate. Over the bumps, this is a lot more forgiving. Maybe the Swace needs to be in sport mode to get the same thing. But there we are. Now a bit of a cruise because someone they're going a bit slow. But it is it's a lovely driving car, and the response on the paddles is quite quick. Obviously, it's just a family hatchback / saloon, so it's not going to have M Sport speed changes or AMG or Ferrari or what have you. And I can't work out whether it's a single or twin clutch system. I don't care what it is, it works. Sometimes when I want to change it from first to second in manual, if I'm in a car park because I'm going out then onto the A14, because I prefer to join the A14 in manual so I can sit it in third or fourth for longer to then bury it on the throttle afterwards. Balls Lodge, that sounds nice. That Range Rover looks like it's got collapsed suspension. But the paddles feel reassuring. The throttle, when you're really going for it, the throttle doesn't actually feel that vague. Sometimes the brake pedal may make you think, oh, is it going to be a bit on the vague side? I don't know. Sometimes the brakes can, since they've been replaced, they can be a tiny bit, let's say, tiny bit vague. But how much of that is the brakes still bedding in? How much of that is just me still adjusting to this car? Probably a bit of both. So it's not going to get too many. It's not going to get too many criticisms from myself. I think I'm stuck behind a member of the 44s club because Cavenham is a 30, and that Mondeo was just pulling away from me. Very pretty village though. It's also not a bad, not got a too bad of a turning circle on it if you're needing to throw it into a UE for whatever reason. You know what, I'm not going to follow that Mondi any further because them being a member of the 44s is making my life difficult. So this is a tiny single track road. I've just done a U-turn in. Away we go. Back we go. So you hear how quickly it responds after I've just at 30, how quickly it responds and the revs drop. Now 30 in fourth is about as much as you can do. I don't know how much this car will run out of puff at the top end. And what do I mean by that? Well, in my Baleno, that's the only other car I've owned that had a 3-cylinder turbo engine in it. Do you know what's 30 and 5th? Yeah. That's the only other car I've owned that had a 3-cylinder turbo, and that would typically, its second gear was extremely wide, so it would go from about 8 miles an hour in second, and you could get to nearly 60 in second, and then in third third felt like it just could do everything, as in it could just keep going. And I would admit, at one point I found an empty stretch of road, and just buried the throttle to see how fast it would go, and I never got out of third gear. I was doing about 110, I think, in third gear. Well, empty bit. I found an empty bit road. It was on a friend's farm. They just had a bit of tarmac around it, private road. Still, it was nice. I would like to take this car there to do that, but I don't live near that person anymore. Too hard to find out. But it feels like in fourth is where it sort of gets up to 70. But I don't know how much more give it's got at that point, because at times it feels like 5th, 6th and 7th, or particularly 6th and 7th, are there as just overdrive gears, so they're there to bring the maximum RPM down as you're going. Let's just give it a bit of respect. Right, not quite at the sweepers yet. See how how this reacts to going uphill. 7.5 ton truck coming. You might have just heard it squeak there. That was because there was a bit of a bump, so it didn't bottom out, but I think my tyres might have made a little bit of wheel spinny noise as the suspension compressed. Right, let's have a look up the hill as best as we can. We look like we've got a pretty empty hill to ourselves. There we go, 4th. Yes, we've got an empty hill for the moment, so that's progress. Down into, oh, there's too many gears I went down. I went into 2nd, I thought I was in 5th, so I thought I was going to be dropping into 3rd. There we go, into 3rd. Flick it in. There we go again. Lovely sunshine, lovely spring day. Into 5th, into 6th. And look at that. Back to where we started. This is the Swace is a fun car to drive on those roads. Don't get me wrong. Very fun. But this is a better car to drive around those roads. Swace is by no means the byword or any word in performance driving. Couldn't be further from it in many aspects. But this is a very well mannered vehicle. It's currently drinking petrol, but that's just something that will resolve itself once I start doing some longer journeys in it. I was meant to travel for a couple of meetings, work related, and they got cancelled. They decided to do them over Teams, which was annoying in the sense of I was going to drive, but at the same time I was like, you know what? After what we did on Teams, it's like I would have been pissed if I'd had to go all the way to was it Chelmsford? I'd have been pissed if I'd had to go all that way to then be told, oh yeah, to then do what we did. That would have just been beyond annoying. Right, let's have a look-ski. Just trying to turn myself around. So this generation of Civic's very nice to drive. The king of this generation, as in what the hatchback king was, it was the Ford Focus, and in many ways it still is the Ford Focus. That is the undisputed king. But this is a damn fine alternative, and I'd challenge anyone to say, I would challenge anyone to sort of have a stupid go at anyone for driving one of these. The oddest choice, it's not the best looking choice out of everything from that time, because probably the best looking hatchback from that time, Ford Focus, Lexus CT200H, maybe the Toyota Corolla as well. You know, there were better looking cars, but it's just a lovely vehicle, and for 13,495 with 34,000 miles on the clock. It was a 68 plate, it was a 2019 registered car, so it was 5-6 years old when I bought it. No previous MOT failures. Warnings for a front brake being a bit worn out, but no actual failures. Damn good, in my opinion. Damn good. It's even got wireless charging down here for my phone. Sarah's phone doesn't like this Android Auto on this. Hers keeps disconnecting, but we think that's a problem with her phone, because mine doesn't seem to do it. Lovely cubby holes here. Big bit in here for the whatever storage. Nice storage all round. We've got the sunroof as well. Interior lights as well. I've got the dash cam set up. That's the nicest place it can be in this car. I do prefer them in terms of for visibility. I do prefer them down there, but I'm not going to lie, it's nice to have that up there to be able to do a quick click, and I apologise about the cable running down. So, overall, damn good car. I'm going to go do those roads again, because that was bloody fun. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'm trying to do things a bit differently. Go to buymeacupofcoffee.com/customer service expert or paypal.me/velocity kinetics. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, follow the Facebook page. I'll see you next time. Whew, damn fine.